Caitlin Clark doesn't have to stay with the Indiana Fever, and that simple idea has sparked one of the loudest debates in the entire WNBA landscape. Because in professional sports, there's a nightmare scenario that keeps ownership groups awake at night. It's not a losing streak. It's not even a season-ending injury to a star. It's the moment a franchise realizes its most valuable asset. The player who transformed everything on and off the court has fully understood the scale of her own power. In this league, talent wins games, but leverage decides futures. We've seen this story before. LeBron James turned it into an art form during his Cleveland era, using short-term deals and calculated decisions to keep pressure on the front office and demand a championship-level roster around him. And now, the basketball world is watching similar conversations swirl around a new face of the league in Indiana, a 24-year-old guard who has completely changed the Fever's visibility, revenue, and relevance, whether the organization was ready for it or not. Welcome back. This is WNBA Pro. Today we're diving into the growing tension and non-stop speculation surrounding one of the most talked about franchises of the season. From passionate fan reactions to heated online debates, and from roster construction concerns to coaching scrutiny, everything is being pulled into the spotlight at once. A recent wave of podcast clips and social media discussion has only intensified the conversation, fueling claims, reactions, and interpretations about the direction of the Indiana Fever and what needs to change for the team to fully maximize its potential. Some fans believe the situation is reaching a breaking point, pointing to coaching decisions, roster fit issues, and long-term strategy concerns. Others argue it's simply the growing pains of building a contender around a young superstar in a rapidly evolving league. But what's undeniable is this: the pressure in Indiana has never been higher. Every decision is being analyzed, every loss is being magnified, every rumor gets amplified into a full-scale narrative about the future of the franchise and its most important player. If you thought earlier controversies and on-court drama were the peak of the conversation, think again, because the real story right now is about power, expectation, and the enormous responsibility that comes with building a team around a generational talent. And as always, the biggest question remains unanswered. How long can a franchise, a fan base, and a rising superstar stay aligned when everything around them is moving this fast?
Fever. Caitlin Clark joined Aaliyah Boston and Candace Parker on their podcast, Post Moves. Great episode, by the way. And there was something that I noticed. Caitlin Clark was not committing to the Indiana Fever long term when her and Aaliyah Boston talked about Aaliyah Boston's contract.
Caitlin Clark recently appeared on a highly anticipated episode of the Post Moves podcast, hosted by her Indiana Fever teammate Aaliyah Boston, alongside WNBA legend Candace Parker. The setting was relaxed and familiar, no tension, no pressure, just a laid-back conversation between teammates. The discussion moved naturally through the challenges of life in the WNBA, the intensity of constant media attention, and the weight that comes with being in the global spotlight. Eventually, the tone shifted towards something more forward-looking: team chemistry, long-term plans, and contract security. Aaliyah Boston spoke openly and confidently about her own future in Indiana, highlighting that she had already committed to her extension and is locked in with the Fever through 2029. There was a sense of stability in her voice, a clear message of commitment to the franchise. Then she turned to Caitlin Clark with a smile and said, "Fever till 2029. Hey, I love playing with you." On paper, it was the easiest moment in the entire conversation. A soft, friendly setup, the kind of question that usually invites a polished, media-trained response. The expectation is simple: smile, play along, reinforce the unity. Something like, "I love playing with you too," followed by the standard line about building something special in Indiana for years to come. That's the script the league is used to hearing. That's the kind of message front offices and broadcasters expect without hesitation.
Whatever.
She's on that till 2029. 2029.
Yeah,
Aren't
no,
you
that's
with
what
the
I'm
Fever
saying.
till 2029?
Hey, I love playing with you.
Yeah, well, I'm only signed till,
Yeah. Don't worry about that.
well, next year.
Don't worry.
She said, well, hey, look, I'm only signed till next year. I love playing with you too, but I'm only signed till next year. You're here till 2029. I'm not necessarily. Respectfully, You know what I mean? Listen, I think Caitlin Clark should hold off on re-signing with the Indiana Fever. If she's going to re-sign, you hold off to the...
First, a quick correction for accuracy. The player's name is Caitlin Clark, not Caitlin Clark, and Aaliyah Boston is correctly spelled. Here's your rewritten script in a fresh, high-impact style while preserving tone and meaning. But Caitlin Clark didn't give the answer everyone expected. She looked back at Aaliyah Boston, completely calm, completely unbothered, with none of the polished, media-trained energy the moment seemed to demand. And then she delivered a line that instantly shifted the entire tone of the conversation, like someone just pulled the emergency brake inside the Indiana Fever's front office. She said, "Yeah, I'm only signed through next year. Don't worry about that. We'll figure it out. Unless I sign my epic." And just like that, everything changed. Because that wasn't a commitment. That wasn't a reassurance. That wasn't the usual superstar answer about building a future in one city. It was the opposite. It was open-ended, deliberate, carefully worded, a door left cracked instead of closed. I'm only signed through next year, unless I sign my epic. For those unfamiliar with the structure of WNBA rookie scale extensions, the epic refers to the supermax level extension players can earn under specific performance conditions, one of the most valuable contract situations available to a rising star. It's life-changing money, the kind of deal almost every player in the league signs immediately without hesitation. But Caitlin Clark isn't most players. She's operating with full awareness of her value, her leverage, and the environment around her. And from her perspective, the situation in Indiana is far from simple. She's playing under constant scrutiny. Every decision, every rotation, every system adjustment is magnified under the spotlight that follows her everywhere. There are ongoing questions about coaching direction, offensive structure, and how her skill set is being maximized within the system. At times, the fit has looked debated both inside and outside the organization. And that's where this moment becomes bigger than just a quote. Because whether intentional or not, it signals something clear. Nothing is automatic anymore. This is no longer just about contracts on paper. It's about alignment between a franchise trying to grow, a coaching staff trying to establish identity, and a superstar whose presence has already transformed the entire business of the team. And the underlying message, even if unspoken, is impossible to ignore. If the vision doesn't match the talent, the future is not guaranteed. From the Fever's perspective, that's the part that carries real weight, because the franchise's financial momentum, fan engagement, and national attention are already tightly connected to her presence. And while internal decisions play out behind the scenes, the broader reality is unfolding in public view, where every statement, every reaction, and every rumor becomes part of a much larger narrative about control, value, and the direction of an entire organization.
Say she's signing it, so at the end of the day, I think Caitlin Clark needs to continue to leave the door open on potentially not signing with the Indiana Fever. Now, shout out to Rhodes Rants. He posted this, and then he said, "Well, we're witnessing the biggest bag fumble of all time by the Indiana Fever." Wow, and I agree. Now, what this is the yearly league attendance by the team. Now, you already know, the Indiana Fever, they're doing absolutely anything to get people to come out to these games. They're doing all type of gimmicks that we hadn't seen them do. We hadn't had to see them go to within Caitlin Clark's
A well-known and highly respected WNBA analytics account recently dropped the updated league attendance figures for the season, and the numbers paint a brutal picture for the Indiana Fever. At the top of the league, the Golden State Valkyries, despite being a new expansion franchise, are already posting impressive sellout crowds. The New York Liberty continue to dominate attendance rankings with consistent demand. The Las Vegas Aces, led by Aja Wilson, remain a powerhouse, regularly filling every seat. The Atlanta Dream, even with a smaller home venue, are also drawing strong local support and traveling fan interest. And then there's Indiana, sitting all the way down in 5th place in league attendance. The Indiana Fever are facing a reality that would have been unthinkable not long ago. 5th, for a franchise that recently experienced one of the biggest commercial surges the league has ever seen. That drop is staggering, because just a year ago, during Caitlin Clark's rookie season, Indiana wasn't just relevant, they were the center of the basketball world. Every home game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse was a sellout. Road arenas were overflowing. Ticket prices on resale markets skyrocketed into the thousands, with fans paying extreme premiums just to witness a Logo 3 or a highlight play in person. The Fever weren't just a team. team. They were the league's economic engine, the franchise driving record attention, record ratings, and helping fuel the WNBA's massive new media rights deal. Now, the contrast is impossible to ignore. Empty seats are visible in large sections of the arena. The demand that once felt unstoppable has cooled, and the same franchise that once defined must-watch basketball has slipped into the middle of the league in attendance rankings. How does something shift that dramatically in such a short time? It points to a deeper issue than just on-court results or scheduling quirks. It reflects a disconnect between momentum, expectations, and execution at the organizational level, one that has turned what was once the league's biggest attraction into a far more complicated picture than anyone anticipated.
Every home and away game just off of the name Caitlin Clark alone. Do you guys have screwed the pooch, man? You blew it. You don't think that you guys putting Raven Johnson, who plays 5 minutes a game, averaging 1 point a game, on flyers instead of Caitlin Clark plays an effect on the attendance? You guys don't think the fact that you keep trying to put Kelsey Mitchell front and center on all the promotional kits and put Caitlin Clark off to the side, that has an effect?
Clip, the reality is simple. Fans didn't suddenly lose interest in Caitlin Clark. What changed is their trust in the Indiana Fever organization, because when you repeatedly frustrate your paying audience, you can't expect them to keep showing up and spending without question. You can't downplay or undermarket the most valuable draw in the sport. You can't push other faces of the franchise to the forefront, while the player driving national attention feels secondary in her own spotlight, and then act surprised when casual fans start reconsidering expensive season tickets. At its core, this is just basic marketing logic. The message from the fan base has become increasingly clear. Their loyalty is to Caitlin Clark, not just the Indiana Fever brand. And when there's a perception that she's being mishandled, underutilized, or not properly supported, the financial response follows. Fans today are more direct than ever with where their money goes, and they're making it known that their investment is tied to how she is treated and how the team is built around her. If that alignment breaks, so does the support. And as frustration grows, the situation around the Fever has started to take on a level of scrutiny and criticism that has turned the organization into one of the most talked about and heavily judged franchises in the league.
The yearly league attendance by the team. Now, you already know, the Indiana Fever, they're doing absolutely anything to get people to come out to these games. They're doing all type of gimmicks that we hadn't seen them do. We hadn't had to see them go to within Caitlin Clark's first 2 seasons. All of a sudden, they're giving away free tenderloin sandwiches. They're giving away free oil changes. They're doing housing.
And because there's this almost obsessive need to prove they are a system-driven team that doesn't rely on a single superstar, the Indiana Fever have ended up leaning into some of the most over-the-top promotional tactics imaginable just to get people through the doors. At this point, it doesn't even feel like standard marketing. It feels like desperation. Free ice cream handed out at the entrance, discount family nights with bundled tickets, snacks included, and heavily reduced pricing just to fill seats, community giveaways, food promotions, and low-cost incentive nights designed to move as many tickets as possible. And then it escalates even further. Reports have even circulated about partnerships with local businesses offering things like free oil changes or service discounts if you attend a game. Let that sink in. A professional basketball team tying attendance to auto shop promotions just to boost turnout. There are also claims of raffles for household furniture, home improvement vouchers, and similar giveaways aimed at filling empty sections before national broadcasts expose the reality of the lower bowl. It starts to feel less like a thriving pro sports environment and more like a constant effort to avoid the appearance of empty stands. And the irony is impossible to ignore, because this is still a franchise with Caitlin Clark, the most marketable, attention-driving player in the sport, someone who naturally pulls global interest wherever she goes. Yet instead of fully centering the product around that reality, the organization is relying on increasingly extreme promotions just to maintain visible attendance. That disconnect is exactly why every decision, every public comment, and every hint about long-term commitment gets so heavily scrutinized. And from that perspective, her hesitation around locking into the future isn't random. It becomes part of a much larger conversation about direction, leadership, and whether the franchise is actually built to match the scale of the star it already has.
This is mind-boggling. And this organization, I think Caitlin Clark needs to seriously consider walking away from the Indiana Fever. Don't sign that epic deal. Pack your bags and go elsewhere. Walk away from them. I mean, if they don't get it together, you got to hold their feet to the fire. I would, coach, get out of my way. Y'all gonna start promoting.
Clip, she's effectively put the Indiana Fever in a position with nowhere to comfortably go. Every decision now feels like it carries consequences on both sides of the table, because the moment she signs a long-term extension right now, she gives up all of her leverage. She locks herself into a system that has already faced heavy criticism for its pace, its structure, and its overall offensive identity. She commits her prime years to a setup that many believe doesn't fully maximize her strengths. From that perspective, it becomes less about loyalty and more about control over her own career path. But by not closing the door and instead leaving everything open-ended with a simple, careful, we'll figure that out, she completely flips the power dynamic. Suddenly, she isn't just a young star on a rookie contract. She becomes the most influential figure in the league's entire ecosystem, because both she and the Fever are fully aware of the reality behind the scenes. There are multiple other franchises across the WNBA that would instantly reshape their entire organization around her. Coaching staff, roster construction, long-term planning, everything would be adjusted without hesitation. Expansion markets only amplify that reality. Look at Toronto's incoming team, a fresh franchise entering with strong backing, global interest, and a clear need for a foundational superstar. A situation where a player like Clark would instantly become the face of an entire national basketball identity. Then there's Golden State's Valkyries, built in a system that naturally emphasizes spacing, movement, and perimeter creativity. The exact environment where a player like her thrives. Across the league, the options aren't limited. In fact, they're expanding, and every alternative carries a different kind of organizational promise. Meanwhile, Indiana now finds itself under real pressure. The combination of declining momentum, rising scrutiny, and constant public discussion has turned every decision into a high-stakes moment. At this point, the organization faces a very clear crossroads. Either they double down on their current structure, stick with their existing leadership, and hope internal continuity is enough to stabilize everything, or they recognize the scale of what they have, reset the direction entirely, and build a system designed specifically to unlock a generational talent rather than constrain her. Because what's become increasingly obvious is this: the balance of control has shifted. The leverage isn't theoretical anymore. It's visible in every conversation surrounding her future. And as long as that remains the case, every game, every decision, and every organizational move carries the same underlying weight, alignment, or departure. This is WNBA Pro. If you're following this situation, drop your thoughts below. Does this represent the most powerful leverage moment we've ever seen from a young star in the league? And how long can a franchise afford to operate in this kind of pressure before something has to change? Stay tuned, because this story isn't slowing down anytime soon.